She's suddenly acting differently between the sheets, but it's not desire, it's displacement. Being a woman myself, I'm going to break down the intimate psychology that men consistently misinterpret. These modifications aren't about improving your connection, they're about managing her disconnection. Before I break down these intimate secrets, smash that subscribe button and enable notifications. Drop a comment which city you are watching from, because what I'm sharing today, it's the physical manifestation of emotional withdrawal. Change number 1. Suddenly more adventurous but emotionally distant, she's abruptly open to experiences she previously declined, different approaches, unusual locations, unprecedented enthusiasm, yet something feels hollow. She's corporately available but spiritually absent during connection. This isn't renewed passion, it's calculated presentation. Consider this development. For years, she maintained specific preferences and limitations. Particular activities remained off the table which you always respected. Then, without warning, she's proposing things she rejected. When you express curiosity about this shift, she casually mentions feeling more experimental these days. However, throughout these encounters, she deliberately avoids meaningful eye contact and appears to be executing rehearsed movements rather than experiencing authentic pleasure. Here's the psychological reality occurring during these moments. She's either reproducing techniques acquired elsewhere or compensating for internal guilt. She's approaching intimacy as a performance rather than genuine connection. She's attempting to convince herself that her investment in the relationship remains intact. What we prefer, you don't realize. She might be recreating experiences shared with someone else. She's employing physical novelty to distract from emotional distance. She's trying to persuade herself that attraction to you still exists. This overcompensation actually signals emotional retreat. Change number 2, initiating more often, but it feels mechanical. She's unexpectedly becoming the primary initiator of physical intimacy. Her approach has become more direct, almost compulsive in its frequency. Yet it feels systematic, like completing a checklist rather than expressing genuine desire. This isn't about increased attraction, it's about guilt management. Visualize this. She historically waited for your initiation most of the time. Now she's approaching you consistently, but the energy feels transformed. She'll interrupt your work to suggest moving to the bedroom. When you question this new pattern, she explains wanting to be more spontaneous in the relationship. But during these encounters, she seems mentally elsewhere and focused on completion rather than mutual enjoyment. Her psychological process involves using frequency to disguise the absence of authentic connection. You'll notice she initiates but remains distracted throughout the experience. She prioritizes finishing over savoring the encounter. She shows little interest in emotional foreplay or deeper connection. Her approach becomes almost clinical in its efficiency. The motivation behind this sudden initiation: she's working to preserve the appearance of relationship health. She's overcompensating for emotional energy being invested elsewhere. She's treating physical intimacy as an obligation rather than spontaneous desire. The truth we won't acknowledge: she's attempting to convince herself that physical attraction to you persists. She's using intimacy to reduce guilt about her emotional distance. She's maintaining relationship appearances through physical activity. This systematic approach actually demonstrates emotional disconnection. Change number 3, new techniques and preferences learned elsewhere. She suddenly demonstrates skills she never previously possessed. Her preferences have evolved in ways that seem to emerge from nowhere. She's suggesting activities never mentioned throughout years together. When questioned about these new abilities, her explanations remain deliberately vague. Picture this situation. During intimacy, she executes something completely unfamiliar, yet remarkably skilled. When you comment on this development, she dismisses it lightly, claiming she probably observed it in entertainment or discovered it through online research. However, her confidence suggests practical experience rather than theoretical knowledge. When you probe for specific details about her learning source, she becomes evasive and redirects the conversation. She's more concerned with your reaction than her own satisfaction, the actual process occurring. She's unconsciously importing experiences from external sources into your shared intimacy. She's attempting to recreate excitement felt with someone else. She's testing whether these new approaches produce better results with you, what we don't want you to discover. She's likely acquired these techniques through practical experience elsewhere. Her psychological framework involves comparing your responses to someone else's reactions. You'll observe unusual confidence regarding something she's supposedly never experienced. She becomes defensive when questioned about her newfound knowledge. She appears to follow predetermined scripts rather than exploring naturally. She's unconsciously trying to transform you into someone else. She's using your relationship as an experimental ground for external experiences. This sudden expertise rarely originates from research. It develops through practice. Change 4. Avoiding intimacy during emotional moments. She's willing to engage physically but actively avoids emotional intimacy during sex. She turns away during vulnerable moments or keeps her eyes closed. She's uncomfortable with romantic communication during physical connection. She prefers brief encounters over extended, emotionally connected experiences. Imagine this situation. You attempt eye contact during an intimate moment, but she looks away or closes her eyes. When you whisper something romantic, she either doesn't respond or changes the subject. She seems to prefer encounters that remain purely physical without emotional components. When you mention missing the closeness you once shared, she claims she's simply trying to be more passionate. The motivation behind this emotional avoidance, she's protecting her heart from connecting with you. She's reserving her emotional intimacy for someone else. She's treating physical and emotional intimacy as completely separate experiences. Her psychological process involves compartmentalizing to avoid guilt and emotional attachment. You'll notice she avoids eye contact during intimate moments. She doesn't want conversation during or after physical connection. She's uncomfortable with romantic gestures during physical intimacy. She appears to be performing rather than connecting authentically, the painful reality. She's already emotionally intimate with someone else. She's keeping physical and emotional intimacy separate to avoid guilt. She's treating you as a physical outlet rather than a romantic partner. This separation allows her to justify emotional investment elsewhere. These changes actually signal she's already emotionally withdrawn from the relationship. She's using physical intimacy to avoid confronting emotional distance. She's treating your bedroom as a performance space rather than an intimate sanctuary. These aren't indicators of renewed passion. They're symptoms of emotional displacement. Don't mistake increased physical activity for renewed emotional connection. Don't ignore emotional distance simply because physical presence continues.